Seneca, how you doing? My name is Joe Fernandez. I'm on the legislative board as well. So typically I'll be, monitoring Q&A. So for all of our members who are watching today, please, if you have any questions specifically, feel free to put it in the Q&A and we can ask these live as we go. But we're going to start with a question from the audience, and I apologize, I'm kind of looking at two different screens here. And our first question comes from Doug Blackshear, and he wants to know, what will you do to increase contracting opportunities in Oakland's government for minority/women business owners?
All right, I like that start. So when you say contracting opportunities, are we talking across the board, or are we focusing on just anything associated with development or housing?
I think it's all opportunities to do contract work with the city of Oakland.
So it's very difficult to get these contracts if you don't know people, and there's not a lot of transparency or oversight in the decision-making process. So the first thing we could do was to see just how can we improve that, right? How can we make sure that, start from the numbers that we have now, do an audit of who are the current contractors, and these are things that you can work with the city auditor's office on. But this is another reason why I think that Oakland needs to start to think about, well, not start to think about, I say that because you have to start there because it's such a controversial thing, but we need a controller, not an auditor, a controller that can actually count our pennies that our taxpayers are paying, and to get a grasp on exactly who is getting what contracts and why. And that's such how do I say it? Under any rock you lift up in Oakland, there's enough work for years for a mayor, if you get what I'm saying. So we're gonna need help from our community and hiring the right type of staff, putting the right type of department heads in place who understand the urgency of this issue. For example, we just had a Alameda County federal report just came out on Monday. If anybody caught that, there was a great section on page 141 that talks about how Oakland's losing millions because of the building department inefficiency. And it's worse than that, right? They're talking about the massive amounts of overtime and underbidding and perceived corruption in the process. So what I'm getting at is, this is not as easy as saying we're gonna have more. There's reasons why they aren't there now. And if you look at who has the power, currently, the Oakland's mayor doesn't even have that power in the city charter to demand that oversight without a controller. So we need a controller. We need more authority to scrutinize the budget that our city council persons are spending. We need more insight and transparency into who gets those contracts and why. And that comes down to the bidding process. And how early are these contracts put out? Is it a no bid process? It just should be a complete audit of how we got here. And I know the question preferenced female or minority business owners, but there's an underrepresentation across the board with people of a lower socioeconomic status. So I would rather address that in its totality as to why neighbors in Oakland are left out of the ability to get these opportunities, this type of revenue, money, and jobs and contract with the city.
Thank you for that. And I really appreciate, that last comment that you said, right? It's a bigger issue than just minorities and women owners. It sounds like just the citizens of Oakland themselves aren't getting the same shot that they should because of the inefficiencies that you see.
Absolutely.
So thank you for that. And with that, I think it's probably a good time to pivot. Shaniqua, I see our great moderator has just joined us. We haven't started our questions yet. So do you want to take it from here, Shaniqua, and go through our questions?
Why not? Isn't this a perfect time to take it and run with it? Good evening, everyone. Please excuse my tardiness. One of the things that you have to understand is we are in the height of one of our busiest sales season. We always say it's a real estate sales season. And today, real estate with me today. So please excuse my tardiness. I am so happy to be here. My name is Shaniqua Badger. I'm the team lead of the Badger Real Estate Group. When I'm not selling real estate, I'm working and advocating for equality in Black home ownership with ARPB. Today, I am your moderator. Good evening, everyone. How are you? So we're going to leave the chat open. The chat is going to be open. So feel free to mingle and chat amongst yourselves, but the Q&A is going to be open at the end of our session. So if you have any juicy questions, we want you to put them in the Q&A section of the webinar so that we can save those and give you all an opportunity to address our candidate today. So are you ready, Mr. Scott? Okay, awesome. So we're going to start off, we're just going to dive all into real estate if we could. We're going to start off with a really pressing question, which is, what is your position on TOPA as it relates to tenants, homeowners, and real estate industry professionals?
Okay, so I've got a page full of notes for us. And I usually don't go into this deep of a dive in a TOPA because I'm so enthusiastically against it. I just find it so disgusting that we're even talking about it 2 years later. When I was running for city council, we were talking about it then. And it's borderline criminal, in my opinion, and to the way it can be manipulated. But I do want to go into the nuances of the question why, so people who are listening, who may be on the fence or who may be for TOPA, can hopefully be better educated and understand the stakes and what exactly is going on. So for renters, it doesn't sound good for renters because it removes all the financial benefit and freedom for homeownership. And what that means is that who's going to invest in that anymore? You're going to have all institutional money invested in your rental property, or you're going to have the special interest of nonprofits or whoever. The point is that the average person is completely removed from this equation. Now, when it comes to the sale price, I mean, there's just so many key issues here. Let me go to some of the issues of the ordinance that are listed. First is that it allows for the sale price of property offered to tenants or special interest developers to be set by the city through a city-approved appraiser. Any person who purchases the property through TOPA has to grant the city power to control its future rent levels, allow property value for like 100 years or 99 years through a deed restriction, which is just insane. It prevents the property from going on the market. And this is a flexibility issue for sale to every tenant. And if you think about some properties and how many tenants you may have on a property, would waive their right to access TOPA. So that's an issue there. All qualified tenants are allowed to transfer these rights to a third-party developer. I mean, that is just, and this is TOPA as it was done in Berkeley or attempted in Berkeley and Richmond, which failed. And we could anticipate, since all the same people are involved with this thing, that it would be at least a few of these, if not all of these aspects of TOPA would try to make their way into the policy. And also any owner found in violation of the process is fined $1,000 per day. So this is not pro-tenant. This is not pro-property owner. This is purely for special interest. And I think it's rather insidious to Black people. I mean, I could think of just even a couple of narratives should trouble you. A family that has generational wealth built through property acclamation from Big Mama or Big Auntie, and then they want to sell it to who they want to sell it to. But right now, you're renting to, let's say, and I mean, I'm going to use the racial angle here just to show how wild this can be for people who claim it's about social justice. You have upwardly mobile white tenants who work in tech, rent your place, then you decide you want to sell it because, you know, I want to move or do whatever I want to do. I want to sell it to my family members and keep our property and generational wealth and legacy in our family. Nope. Nope. That ain't going to happen with TOPA. That's just one narrative. I mean, it's just so bad to even consider. So I'm really against it. I will fight against it. I've already been fighting against it. I've worked with groups like In It Together in Oakland who help put together really good policy platforms, like the one I just read off the internet for you guys just now. And I did that because I agree with it all wholeheartedly, and even help our hope in incubation of that language and that policy approach. So both sides are harmed. It's going to rob people of the ability to own assets. And as we know, asset acquisition and ability to hold it has been absolutely key in the financialization of our economy in the last 20 years. And it's provided basically a two-tier economy where people who have assets are positioned differently and wealth-wise to people who don't. And the fact that Black people are systemically on the other end of that is an alarming trend that will be exacerbated by TOPA.
Well, what I like about your response is you helped bridge the gap of understanding what TOPA is with the audience. Many times we get on the topic of TOPA and people are like, what is TOPA? Is that a new thing in the city of Oakland? Is it an ordinance? What is it? Is it a new sauce that's happening in the city? What is TOPA? And so I think for the people who have joined us for the past two conversations, this really helps bridge the gap of understanding what TOPA is, what it does, and how it affects both sides of the fence, unintended and intended impact. So thank you for helping us bridge that gap with our audience today. That's been very helpful.
Thank you. Very happy to do it.
Yeah, and so we're going to continue this conversation around tenants and landowners, if we may, because I think that that's a very pressing issue. We've heard a lot of conversation with the city council over the past 3 to 4 weeks around the preservation of tenant taxes and taxation around property owners. We've heard the preservation of mom and pop rights in the city to be able to afford to be mom and pop owners. Our next question is going to continue to dive into that, which is rights to a decent and affordable home. Tenant rights are necessary and important facets of any economy, but how will you strike a balance between tenants' rights and homeowners, especially the mom and pop owners' rights, people who depend upon their small rental income as their sole rental retirement income?
Thank you. When I read these questions, I was thrilled because the questions practically led me through my platform. And that platform is this: I'm here for neighbors, local businesses, and small property owners. That's my priority. And the reason is because there hasn't been a balance in Oakland for our needs. I think that people look purely down the percentages, 60% of Oakland rents. So therefore, I should preference that group if I want to stay elected. I don't think that's a winning strategy because voter turnout is limited here, and whoever can, energize the electorate can absolutely change that. And that's also an assumption that every renter will vote that way, which is not true. A lot of renters have a brain and a heart and can see through some of the problematic policy that we're putting forth. So I want to talk about a recent vote on the imbalance, which the CPI vote for the 3%. And I want to talk about this a little bit at length, not too much at length because I know the time schedule, but y'all all know, if you don't know how that vote went, raise your hand on the panel. So if I don't need to recap it, okay. So we're all familiar that our councilperson Taylor was the only one to introduce an alternative that still kept it at 3% for the rent increase, because over 6% was a lot in this economy, and said, you know what, we'll bake the good times in the bad because this is a 20-year plus agreement that's withstood 2+ recession, including the Great Recession of 2008. And you don't just jettison something that was formed by a consensus of the people and government. What faith are you ever going to have to engage in this process again? Is if at your whim in one city council meeting, you can just get rid of all of that because you feel like it's politically correct or the optics favor you to win an election. And that's the problem that I have right now with our leadership in City Hall. It's just not honest. That was not an honest conversation that we were privy to. There was it was like a laugh. I almost felt like they ridiculed that poor man, right, for his idea to try to balance everyone. That was the perfect balance. It should have been considered. It should have been thought. And we went to like a couple meetings and they just dismissed it and laughed at him. And they did that not because they didn't think it was a good idea. At least I hope they didn't, or they're just complete idiots. But I believe that they did that because they want to win a mayor's race. That's a problem. That is a huge problem. So who are the pawns in this political game of thrones in this race in Oakland right now? Right? Who are the pawns who are going to suffer, who are sacrificed off the board? I play chess. In this struggle. You know who it is. And that's why I'm here to speak for people like us who represent people who, mom and pop and small property owners, not commercial real estate, not institutional money, right? I want to be very clear about that. And I'm also a little concerned that Lauren didn't have the leadership qualities or the strength to even get other moderates to consider that. That's the problem. You should have been able to get other people to talk about that. You should have talked to Gaio and talked to Tuiva and said, I need your help here. Let's not play games here. Let's talk about this in good faith. So at least we can get the public will and the political will to work cohesively to balance those needs. So that's just one issue and one example I wanted to use that was very recent. And I think I probably helped lead to this question. There's no balance right now. Right now, the progressives run the city council. Now you got two options here. You either elect more moderates or more business-friendly people to city council, like myself, and I'm a former union official. I'm a community garden guy. I want to fight for Black liberation. I got my heroes on my wall and all of that. And I still like this. I like to get money from my people as well, right? Because that's what's going to really help us liberate and educate ourselves and be self-determined the way that I was brought up. I'm a Scott. Coretta Scott King is my second cousin, my grandfather's niece. So this is my legacy. I've been hearing this since I was born of what we were supposed to do to get to where we wanted to be. So we're not having that balance and we're suffering right now. I'm concerned about institutional money taking over this market. Over half the mortgage-backed securities right now are owned by institutional money in America. That's just one more step to all the physical properties being owned by institutional money. And we're helping push us to that place. And I'm not sure why these progressives think that these are good ideas, but I don't believe that they are. So we need to either elect different people to council or, and we need to think about a charter amendment. If you look on my website, one of the things that I'm running on is a charter amendment to move to a traditional, I say accountable mayor, but strong mayor, where the mayor has legislative veto and line item veto. So they can have more power and more influence. Otherwise, what the person who says here, interviewing for the job you're interviewing me for today, is almost a new point, if you will, if I don't actually have the ability to carry that through. The mayor can't just be a bully pulpit. And I do intend to use that bully pulpit. Don't get me wrong, but it can't just be that. We have some structural changes we need to make. So we need a voice to encapsulate it all. We need a voice that's unapologetic about standing up for small property owners, that's not going to talk in word salads and gobbledygook and tap dance around the subject, but also has the ability to win other people over in the electorate to vote a different way. That was embarrassing, that CPI increase. Anyone who was involved with that process, I wouldn't blame you if you never wanted to serve on a committee or work with the city again. But do so with me, where I give it another chance.
So I want to, before we move on to our next question, I want to kind of stay in a space with you if I can. I heard you bring up the words institutional money. Now, we as real estate professionals, we like institutional money every once in a while because that's how we get our clients into homes, you know. You know, we use Fannie and Freddie. We don't like Sally Mae very much. We will use Fannie and Freddie to get our clients into homes. And So I think that there's a method in which institutional money can create balance and leverage with people. My question to you would be, is where do you find the balance of making sure that we delineate between institutional money versus the mom and pop, right? Because I think what we've seen is people step on the backs of the mom and pop to get to the institutional money. So is there policy that you think can be created to have more of a definitive due process so that we know exactly where the accountability and the protection really should lie?
Yes. So, for example, those parcel taxes that aren't capped on square footage is one. When other places clearly have a model that would prevent disenfranchising new property owners from having essentially a two-tier tax structure. So, looking at any of those type of examples, you should let me know. Right, this isn't my profession. I am on the Oakland Builders Alliance. If you're familiar, and we need some members there, especially people of color. Some of the top real estate developers and commercial real estate developers are on that board. And I'm not one, but I joined to give me an education on how these people think, because they're the ones who put all those towers up downtown with Jerry Brown type of people, right? I'm not going to name drop, but you know the board, you know the old guard is all up in the mix. And I wanted to see what they talk about, how they talk in the smaller rooms, and when they're in front of city officials, and what the agenda is, and how that agenda can coalesce with smaller businesses and mom and pop owners who essentially, as you mentioned, they get at them through you or us, right? So policy-wise, I don't have a lot for you at the moment besides the parcel tax is big. I have an issue with that not being capped for square footage. And the rent increase, we don't have a do-over, but we should revisit whenever possible the two-tiered structure that can at least recoup some of that CPI. In the good times we can share with that. I think that would be beneficial. And it's just an approach to the framing and the culture. And we have a culture war in our city hall right now that is having disastrous effects on our ability to run our businesses, and it's causing people to divest and look for greener pasture. So we need to protect people from losing property who are smaller. We need to make sure that, especially live-in or occupied units, where you know people are personally vested in their property, there should be some help there, if you will, right? I'm not sure how that will look policy-wise, but I definitely would aggressively pursue it and work with the stakeholders who are closer to the problem to come up with some good ideas that we can put forth.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you giving us a little bit more. I know I got a little bit more out of you, but I want to make sure that when we start talking about institutional money, understand as real estate professionals, we kind of like it every once in a while. It's just how it's used is a little bit of a problem, right? So we want to continue this conversation around homeownership and inclusion. In deference to improving minority homeownership, the average sewer lateral costs between $7,000 to $10,000. And the average sidewalk improvement is $3,000 to $5,000. Having to pay for these additional costs knocks many of our buyers out of the market. What solutions or ideas do you have to assist with our minority first-time home buyers?
You know how many people I called the last week asking for ideas for that question? It's the big one. And it comes down to partially that federal report, the Alameda County Grand Jury report gives you some insight into why we have to recoup those dollars, because we're losing so much. So my answer is going to be a little bit asymmetrical here. We're losing money here because we're inefficient in this department. We haven't implemented a seller. If you guys are familiar, we haven't fully implemented the seller program. We have no pre-approval process for development. There are so many different things that are losing us millions of dollars per year in revenue in the city of Oakland. that money could be used, to help supplement some of these things. Because the general fund to me is if anybody's ideas for anything for equity or social justice related comes from the general fund, we very, 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 very red flaggy or whatever the new term is. Because that's what we use to fill our potholes, keep our water running clean, and keep our pensions paid, right? Our unfunded liabilities in check. We have a lot of things to do there that require fiscal responsibility. So we need to figure out where we're losing money at so we can create more money in that world of supporting building and homeowners to do that. There's also another program, and it's not exactly related to anyone who buys a house, but for first-time buyers, we haven't had a first-time buyer program in the city of Oakland. The mortgage assistance program has been dormant for years. I couldn't get an exact answer because anybody can tell me how many years it's been dormant, but we need to fund that and bring that back. That's the pathway to homeownership. The city of Oakland should be intentional about making sure that we can fund that. I heard that they tried to give it a go around maybe right before COVID and it was unsuccessful. So that'll be another one that's right on the radar to make sure that we can seek to fund that by creating more dollars by improving the overall efficiency of our building department.
So we have 3 more questions that are on the list, and then we're going to open up for Q&A. I see people are starting to funnel into the Q&A section. They're getting warmed up. The more that we go through these questions, they're getting warmed up. They're like this in the chat. So I'm going to ask a favor of you. Do you have time, if we run just a little bit over, to continue to answer questions with our audience today, or do we need to do a hard land at 7:30?
I got to 8.
Okay. See, oh, you see, they got to 8. Don't threaten us with a good time because we'll keep you till 8. Okay, let's change the side of the Rubik's Cube on this one if we can. This is a question that many people are kind of chomping at the bits for. Violent crimes are up 8% from 2020 to 2021. With robberies being up 11% and burglaries being up 17% over the same period, how can we combat these rising numbers that impact our community? And for everyone's reference, we get these off of the City of Oakland's website. So the floor is yours.
Thank you for the statistics. I'll add a couple more statistics for you. The average 911 response time is over 18 minutes. 20% of 911 calls go unanswered currently. We're down to 670 officers, which, by the way, is less than the number of the measures that we were supposed to have. So I don't know how those are still applicable, Measure D, but we're under that staffing well, and our attrition continues to remain high. That means there are less than 70 officers at any given time patrolling the streets of Oakland, when there should be actually hundreds. I've seen reports of tuning, like when we were a city of less than 300,000, that said we were to have 150 officers in the field. I mean, we don't have a rule of law currently in Oakland, and it's leading to permissible crime. So first, we're going to talk about staffing levels. We need to get 200 additional officers in the next 4 years. That means 4 OPD academies, which is 6 per year, graduating 25 officers. We'll get to 200 officers, over 200, but we have to allow for attrition. We also have to bring the attrition levels down. I also have a goal to increase the number of OPD who live in the city of Oakland to double that to 20%. Currently, only 10% of Oakland officers live here. Now, here's why that's a problem. Contrary to popular belief or propaganda, because of our federal oversight, the last 18 years from the negotiated settlement agreement, we actually have one of the better trained and funded training police academies in the country. And because of that, they're poached routinely by the places they live in. So they come to Oakland, they get great training, and they get some field experience, they get a ton of overtime, getting hired by Rite Aid or whatever, and then they take off for the places that they live in. And we've got to stop the bleeding there and make them feel more appreciated. That means having a more honest communication about crime. And the mayor doesn't have scope of responsibility over Alameda County, but Alameda County jettisoned its gang task force 2 years ago. And the moment they did that, you saw a spike in the rise in gang crime because we completely lost our CI network and all of the things that allow people to get ahead of the violence because they have their ears to the street with community police to sort of know, when things are getting crazy. So now it's going to get harder and harder to put that genie back in Atlanta or whatever the euphemism you want to use. It's going to get difficult. We saw the shooting that we had in front of downtown the other day when a gentleman was shot and his two accompanying female from his birthday were both shot and he was killed. And this is getting to be scary for everyone. It's a unifying issue now in Montclair and Rockwood to the flats for once. Typically, these violent issues affect the hills peripherally, but for once now, they're affected too because of a rise in home invasions and follow home robbery and all of these things that are affecting the elite. So we need to have a lot more staffing. I'm going to move, and I know homeless is on the list, so this is going to come up different ways, but we need to stop our open air drug markets that we like to call homeless encampments. And I'm going to name them so everyone knows which ones I'm talking about. Wood Street, East 12, Alameda Avenue, Martin Luther King and Grand, and 34th and Peralta, for starters. If you just can stop the open air permissive drug dealing and just these spots, you would see, you can look at the map and see the proximity of violent crime near these open air drug markets. That's where these crimes are happening. And it's because we allow anything goes in Oakland. So you don't want to criminalize poverty, but you need to criminalize criminals and violent crime. So that's a big issue. And another thing is the youth. If you look at the people who are committing the crimes right now, they're largely young people who have been forgotten, who have been fed, poison in their schools, who don't get taught to read. They're graduating with no literacy rates, if they're even graduating. And you're never going to stop that cycle, as we all know, until we give our youth some sort of mentorship and guidance. So we need programs like the ones that we're working on now. My nonprofit Neighbors Together Oakland is working with Urban Compassion Project and the Urban Peace Movement to pay young men, and here's how you have to do it because of how violent it is. You got to send the youth from San Francisco, ages 18 to 30, our target age, to Oakland to do anything for open air mentorship or work program. And you have to go after 25 because Job Corps ends at 26 and the Covenant House ends at 25. And that's the age you see a lot of drop off because people are homeless or they have to make tougher choices, right? Because they're still very young at these ages, despite how that number sounds with the actual reality of what these youth are going through and the economy that they've grown up in and the lack of choices they have. So we're going to pay them, but you've got to send them cross city. You've got to send the Oakland youth to San Francisco. Why? Because it's shoot on sight right now, if you haven't noticed. It doesn't matter what time of day or night, if they see their enemies, they pull out the guns and they start shooting at each other. So you got to get them out the city to other places. You got to engage them with community stakeholders who can actually talk to them. We need leaders that look like our children and our youthful people, who sound like them, who don't alienate them, who they can see some audacity in them and some hope in them through that leadership. So I'm talking to all of y'all, as well as myself, right, to get more involved in our youth, because they're the ones who are doing this, and they're doing it because they have no hope. They have no mentorship, no guidance, no hope, no nutrition, no love. It's our fault. We have to own that. In addition to the police and the staff and all of that stuff, we're gonna have to take really taking care of our babies and our young adults a lot more seriously.
And I heard you here talk about homelessness, and I think we all saw the huge fire that happened in Oakland this past week that basically shut down 880 underneath a 880 overpass that was ignited in one of the homeless encampments. So I want to ask you a very specific question around homelessness. The population of homeless people living in Oakland have increased by 24% over the past 3 years. Although the number of unsheltered residents only increased by about 100 people, what would you do to increase the overall homeless number we face in the city of Oakland? And that was taken off of the everyonehome.org website.
So we have an encampment management policy, as most of you know. I sued the city for not following it. Is it perfect? No, but it gives us some guidelines and framework for how public camping can work safely and balance the interests of the housed and unhoused. And a big part of that is not allowing certain behaviors. So I want to add some context to that 24%. This is a big number. Probably the most important thing I can say to prove my point here. We've had an eviction moratorium in Oakland for a large part of that 3 years, right? Now, why do we have that eviction moratorium? So we wouldn't have an explosion in homelessness? And yet we did? So we know they're not coming from here now. So anybody who says all that is a lying to you. It's a lie. People are coming here because we are the land of milk and fentanyl. That's my quote. It's drug tourism. That's how we're growing our homeless. So we got to stop that first. Let's stop the drug tourism. Let's follow some public safety laws that make it uncomfortable for people to come here and prey on their communities and sell that poison to each other, right? And then we can move on to the 30%. This is the big number. 30% of our unsheltered right now, they don't have a drug problem. They don't have a mental health problem. They have a poverty problem. They need housing first as a policy, not the person who needs wraparound services. And they're stuck in line and stuck in policy lines with people who are, again, being used as pawns for poverty camps in the homeless industrial complex. And there's a lot of money here. So we have extended beyond broken window theory. We have burned out car theory is what I call it. How long would a burned out vehicle stay somewhere before the city actually cleans it up? Not puts out the fire, but actually cleans it up. 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months. I've seen them all. What do you think when you have that? It's obviously a signal that you can die. I live in West Oakland. I saw that from my house. As a video on my Twitter, I went down there, I talked to, the police and all of that about why it happened, because I have a lawsuit, an active lawsuit. We have had 90 fires in Wych Street this year. We have 3 fires a day in homeless encampments alone. 70% of homeless encampments are in D3, the other 30% are in the flatlands, they're all in the poor Black and brown neighborhoods. So now we have to breathe in environmental toxins in addition to the multi-decade history of environmental racism. And no one talks about this who's progressive because they have an agenda. There's the absolute agenda there. And I'm not going to speak on what it is or what it isn't. I'm just going to say that there is one because I don't hear anyone talking like this. So when it comes to actually providing housing, and this is the biggest part, you can't move someone unless you have an offer of housing for them. We have over 365 encampments in Oakland right now. Now, notwithstanding the problematic ones that I call open their drug zones, that I want shut down right now, what about the other several hundred of these poor people out here who just poor and desperate and miserable, trying to make it? We don't have housing for. Well, Oakland has over half the county's homeless. We don't get half the county's homeless money. I haven't got the latest numbers, but 2 years ago, we had 70% of the county's homeless and less than 40% of the allocation of the dollars. We need to make that match up. We need to work with the Board of Supervisors to demand our fair share to address these issues from the county and the state. We need to be a lot more creative in housing ideas. There've been some great ideas out there that have just been dismissed. They're not possible anymore, but I'll give you one was not the army base. That one wasn't the best idea. The jail, downtown jail. Everybody hears jail. You want to put the homeless people in jail. No, it's a building that's made out of concrete with a bunch of units. Hire Martha Stewart to decorate it, and now all of a sudden it's pimped out. I lived there for 2 months if I was mayor, no problem. Set it up for me, put me a TV in there, right? Come on now, y'all, be creative. It's centrally located. It's concrete. It's stainless steel. It was about to sell it, I think, or they sold it, but it was the perfect thing to do. But no one did it because they were scared to touch it because they couldn't sell it because there's no creativity there. These problems we have now require creativity, like daring, courageous solutions. Not people who are worried about tap dance and about optics. People who are worried about performative politics and performative altruism. So, in addition to following the encampment policy, for those of you who don't know what it says, no public camping 50 feet from homes, residences, businesses, critical infrastructure like the underpass that we nearly lost 2 days ago. They're not even supposed to be there. It's been 2 years since they passed that policy, and they haven't followed it in good faith. So we're going to make sure that we work with the new homeless administrator to do that. He's new, so no shade to him. I actually think the brother's doing a good job lately, and hopefully that path continues. So we also need to take a hard look at the nonprofits, and this is what I'll close on. There's a lot of money being spent in the city. This goes back to transparency with city council. City council they are not required to have full-time jobs. So a lot of them still work or contract with or hobnob with the NGO. And these NGOs mysteriously get all these contracts for everything. So we gotta put a stop to that because we need that money right now to provide needed services and actually create some real housing for the unsheltered.
Well, we're going to wrap up our questions. We have one final question, and we're going to open it up for Q&A. So if anybody has any questions, please get them in the Q&A. We're going to try to address as many as possible. We've heard a lot around the encampment policy and what's working, what's not working. We've heard a lot around home ownership. We've heard a lot around crime. Some people just want to see a pretty city, right? And so we have to make sure that we say, when we think about the ideal version or the best version of Oakland, we want to say, how do we make it to that pinnacle that everybody wants to see, where it's clean streets, green, litter-free, beautiful, sustainable. What steps do you plan to take to create and sustain a beautiful, clean, green, litter-free, strong emphasis on litter-free Oakland?
I love it. And I like that you ended it with this one because it's positive and we have to talk about a lot of hard stuff here. But my favorite question, because Oakland has a perfect city with perfect weather, perfect people. We literally have everything we need right here in the confines of our city to create that park. And we have the artists, we have the creators, we have the tech people, all of that. And here's the plan. First, we got to clean up. No one's proud of a dirty home. Shame is never a place to operate out of, to do anything. So we got to clean it up. These burnt out vehicles, we're going to clean them all up with ODOT, and we're going to keep them that way. And we're going to use our cameras and our whatever technology available that the city commission or police commission don't want to use. I don't care what they want to use. They're not the government. They didn't get elected. I got elected, so we're going to use them, right, under whatever authority the office has to direct to do that. And after you get a hold of those burnt out vehicles, you go to the illegal dumpers. We're going to catch them. We're going to tow their vehicles like in Detroit, like how they stopped it. I'm not talking about somebody throwing a little McDonald's wrapper out the car. I'm talking about the illegal dumpers that make money off coming to our neighborhoods and dumping their trash when they get paid to dump the stuff. It's a hustle. Millions get made like that. We don't take their vehicles. Full stop. We're going to take their vehicles. First time offenders, I do not care anymore. This is absolutely unconscionable. So that's another plan. So that's we get that. You have to keep Oakland clean and beautiful. We need a rebrand of that. So I take some ideas from the community to put more swag on that one. I like Overgrow Oakland because you know what's nice and clean? Community gardens, edible landscapes, right? I want an edible Oakland. I want edible walking foraging maps. Imagine you have a digital map on your phone of Oakland where you can put your neighborhood and say, where are the lemon trees or the rosemary or the jasmine or the whatever you want, right? There's thousands of available medicinal herbs and edible herbs that grow here naturally in abundance that if we actually have intentionally planted them if you know a little bit about Oakland's landscape. We can double and triple down on that to create a sense of pride and help create more vitality in our community. It's something that I have Ocala Festival as my company and I run a community garden. That's my lifestyle choices that amplify what I think we need to do, right, as people, and grow food with your neighbors. Have fun, have parties. Festivals are so important. If you look at the two ways that people interact the best, is when we're doing business with each other. That's why we have cities. Cities are there for commerce. That's why they're there. And when we party, when we have fun, that's when we engage at our best. And Oakland likes to party, and we like to do business, right? So we're going to lean into that culture. We know that it's here. It is bursting. Everyone knows that Oakland has so much promise. That's why, despite all of this crime and all of the optics, and Oakland's the worst city run, and all of these things that would drag Oakland through the mud, it is not stopping this money from coming here. They still coming here. They know what's up. So we need to get ours, stake our claim, and make sure that we can be part of this emerging identity that Oakland will become, that has our imprint on it, that our legacy of the Foreman Porters and the Black Panthers and the freedom fighters and the hippies and all of that, right? We fought for something here. So we're going to see that mission through in a way that works for everyone. And we deserve better.
You know, I am going to open up the floor for questions if I can.
First is at an agenda here.
I've seen this.
I see
Listen, we told them to speak among themselves in the chat, and folks went and took it and ran with it now, didn't they?
I'm not mad with it. You leave an open chat in a forum, that's a risk. You know how it works in Oakland. So this has been a rather tame one so far, though. But
well, you know, we set some ground rules. You know, they know we've taught people how to come and be a part of our platform. So I think people are learning as we go and as we grow. So I appreciate all of you that are in our chat that are behaving yourselves and having a good time and listening and learning, like all of us are who are sitting here on the panel as well. So we're going to open it up. I'm going to defer the floor. I'm going to yield the floor to Joe and Georgia. If you could help with the questions, I'm still listening. So be prepared, y'all. I'm still listening. I haven't given up all of my superpowers as moderator. So let's get to the questions, shall we?
Thank you very much, Shaniqua. So I'm going to go over Seneca. There's a couple of these questions in here that I think you did a pretty good job kind of touching on them. So I'm just going to hit on a couple that I think we already talked about just to get clarification for some of the people in the community. Specifically about, you know, burnt out cars and homelessness, like you were talking about. One of our attendees who was remaining anonymous asked if you support overturning the current policy in Oakland that would allow someone to live in a vehicle on the streets pretty much indefinitely without any fear of removal.
You mean the current policy that allows that? Would I overturn it?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Right away.
Thank you. I kind of got that from you in some of the other answers, but I thought I would ask that for our community members here. The next question that we have is, Black businesses and Black people are being run out of Oakland right now. And what would be your plan to address the gentrification plan in Oakland right now?
We gotta learn to negotiate better and get at these tables. So, or we gotta get our own money and buy it ourselves and be able to compete, which still means we need to know what properties are gonna come up, or we need to control these areas that we want to incubate, like San Pablo Corridor that out here in West Oakland, we've been having our eyes on for a while, which means that we need to consolidate our efforts and pick a place. Chinatown, there's a Chinatown. There's even a little Saigon, right? Where's Wakanda, whatever we want to call it? It can't be Lake Merritt, y'all. It can't be the swap meet at Lake Merritt. That ain't our Black Wall Street, right? Where's our real Black Wall Street? Where's our real consolidation of Black-owned businesses? We have to do that together as a Black. So that's one part of it. It's the self-determination needs to be intensified in our community, and what is it, cooperative economics, right? One of the principles of Kwanzaa, Ujima, needs to be uplifted as well. Not to get all preachifying, but it's a big one. I lived in Ujima dorm at Cornell, so you know, I know Ujima. I may not tell you the rest of them, you know, Kakali or whatever, but I know that one. That's big. We need that intention and not competition. A healthy competition, fine, but not just what's going on now. That's not healthy. And we also need to, what I mean by being at the table, right now in West Oakland, we just had a white property owner, Joe Ernst. He just bought the whole block over here in Peralta. But he helped build a farmer's market here. He's gonna work with the community to make sure that some of those places go to people from the lower who may not have been ready for those opportunities, that they will help incubate with business programs, right? But having a pro-business mind state can't be a political pawn that you pick and choose, or a sweater you throw on or off like Mr. Rogers, depending on what crowd you want to hang out with, or whatever way, you know, your party's blowing. That's why I'm an independent. There's so much issues right now in the party with Black wealth, not performative, but actual real tangible policies that's leading to that. And I'm not gonna go to team. I know I'm wearing a red shirt, but I'm damn sure not gonna go to Team Red, right? I'm wearing red for Cornell, but I'm an independent. I think that Black people, whether you're them or not, I don't care, but we need to be a lot more intentional about what we vote for and who we uplift to office. And do we really believe these people when they say they're for these things? And my actions have shown it through our festival. I have a festival, Ocala, where we incubate businesses. We pay for the small businesses who couldn't pay for the business license because we would do it yourself. We didn't have the licenses, so when we wanted to do our thing for real, we didn't want to leave them behind. So they don't have $150 or whatever for the business license. We're gonna put that in our budget for our fundraiser. So we can do that for 10, 20 businesses. Oakland's really good about stuff like that, actually. That's why I'm here. Oakland's really, really good. There's endless stories of these little things here and there that people are doing. Let's aggregate it, right? The Black New Deal, it sounds like a good title. I don't know what's in it, because the people who behind it, they shady. They the ones talking Black New Deal, and they've been trying to take your money from you and push TOFA down your throat. You can't be for TOFA and the Black New Deal. That's a mutually exclusive energy, right? So I think we need someone who's going to be a lot more honest and open about that. But again, let me be very clear. I'm a class over race person. I love Black people. I'm Black. I'm rooting for everybody Black. But Fred Hampton's my hero. He fought for the class over the race, because we get the poor Black people. All Black people ain't poor. I put the poor down. A lot of my friends are rich. They don't have poor people problems, right? So we need to fight for all poor people right now who just happen to be mostly minorities. But there are other people in the flow too who are Latino or Asian or whatever. We got to all come up together, right? We got to support minority-owned business or poor people-owned businesses. I don't care what I mean, we need some reparations, don't get me wrong, but I like to throw that out there so you don't, there's not a tunnel vision there, right? That's going to alienate other people in our community who feel like they don't have a voice in Oakland right now.
Thank you. So staying on the similar topic, but I guess diving a little bit deeper, Doug Blackshear had asked a follow-up question, regarding how much money the city is giving to business owners, and specifically male, mostly white male business owners, to the tune of roughly about $500 million is, the quote he has here. And only about 0.32% or 1.4 million is going to Black-owned businesses in Oakland. Obviously, there's inequity when it comes to wealth, but obviously, I think this is probably piggybacking off of the previous question about contracts that the city gives out. What thoughts or plans might you have to address this just gross inequality here?
I wasn't aware of these numbers, so thank you first for the education. Let me repeat it back to make sure I have it correct. 500 million last year. Was that correct? For white
that's
male,
the number
people,
that Doug had quoted. Yeah.
1.4 million for minorities, and this is for contract.
It doesn't say specifically all contracts, but I believe it's probably contracts coming from the city. It seems that the way that the question is phrased.
So you could put some quotas. The problem with quotas is that it gets to get messy. I want to focus on the integrity of the actual process to make sure that it's a meritocracy and not a who knows who. And if we discover that in that meritocracy that there's still a divide because of the institutional inaccessibility of that business, I want to say acumen, but that business infrastructure, if you will. I face this all the time, coming from organized labor and being a community organizer, and wondering how I can't get my nonprofit funding while other people can just get millions of dollars all the time for the crappy ideas. Not that good ideas, right? I feel it, right? If we need scrutiny in that process, that's why I feel really strongly to bring it back to a controller. Oakland needs an enforcer. You know that a controller in San Francisco can actually say, there's no money for that, so don't even bring it up in a vote. That's actually more power than the mayor in some respects. I think right now we need to entertain some of that. And it's such a loaded word. People don't like it, right? I wouldn't put it on my printed literature, but I'm seeing more and more that with an eye for social justice and making sure that there's equity, that's really going to expose a lot of corruption in Oakland. It's the corruption that's prevented us from really being able to do these things with honesty, not just say we want to do it. The money has to be there. The amount of pension debt that we have in Oakland, the fact that we're in appeals for a lawsuit for $200 million right now with Mark McClure and Phil Tadami, y'all aware of that? We have lawsuits out there in appeal that could bankrupt the city. I got a plan for that. I know both of them. Hopefully they'll work with us if they win the appeal. And I'm being dead serious here about that, right? Like, that's a lot of money, right? We can't keep bleeding money through people divesting, businesses divesting, and our opportunities being lost, and not having taxes based to build from, and expect to have any money for social programs, which essentially these are. So when it comes to the bidding process, it needs a lot of scrutiny. I think it needs to scrutiny to the level of an actual controller that has the ability to blow the whistle on some corruption. And then after that, we need to create a bidding system that works fairly for everyone.
That was phenomenal.
Thank you.
Phenomenal. Well, we've concluded, and I think we all have enough information to digest. We want to thank you all for attending what ARPB considers a tremendous opportunity to keep our members and our community informed on political matters, and particularly those matters that concern local housing policy and impact our Black and other minority communities. Thanks again. We hope to see you again next week. Our guest mayoral candidate next week will be Greg Hodge, same time, same station, July 21st at 6:30. Everyone have a great evening, and just be mindful that we make a difference. Our vote counts, and we need to be informed and educated, and that's what we're trying to do, provide a platform for you to be informed. With that.
Thank you. I really appreciate the platform as well.
Thank you, Seneca. You're awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're great.
I had one more closing remark, 5 seconds.
Yeah.
If you want me to win and you like what you heard, send me money.
Okay. I'll do that.
Thank you. Because we don't have a special interest fundraising for us. Remember that. Remember who I said we're fighting for, and remember whose voice